So now let's move on to talk about children aged 5 to 6. And again, as with all other ages, you'll find plenty of important technical recommendation of their developmental capacities in the presentation and other documents. But I wanted to start by talking about a very significant increase in their cognitive capacity. And it starts with something very technical. They can relate clock time to daily schedule and know what a calendar is, and sometimes can even tell time. So for them, a concept of time is appearing and they crack this idea. At this point, they know and then can know. And as a result, they can develop basic historic narrative structure. What does it mean? They can tell stories in time. In the beginning, I was doing this, and then I was doing this, and afterwards I was doing that. They might even say, yesterday I've been to, or they can even start telling us about when they went to on holiday. But remember, this is still an emerging capacity. They're still not massively fluent, and they cannot, for example, narrate their entire lives, even those little bits that they know about. But what we can and should do is really encourage them to develop this capacity further. So we need to ask them questions about what happened, when it happened to them, and what was it like. So it's a skill that they already can have, so we need to really help them to elaborate on that. Another thing is their capacity to recognize humor in simple jokes and trying to make up jokes and riddles themselves. So what develops now, before that age, children do not have a sense of humor. They might pretend that they do, but a sense of humor in a conventional adult sense is developed around this age. Because if we think about it, humor is almost always built on some sort of understanding of rules and breaking them, morals and bending them. This is how humor is structured. And in order to be able to appreciate something as funny, you need to know the proper way to appreciate the slight variation which makes it funny. So they would love simple jokes, and they would love, for example, using bad language of poop. And they would say poop, and they laugh it out because they understand that you're not supposed to use it, but you're using it, hence it's funny. So you might have a child in the classroom who would who to some sort of a question will state poop or boobies, and everybody starts laughing like there's no tomorrow. They will do that. Sometimes even older people do that. They also have great many achievements in terms of their emotional capacities. One is, at this point, we do expect them to express aggression in a verbal form rather than a physical one. They would already, at this point, have sufficient self-control. The level of uncertainty avoidance is becoming smaller and smaller, and they generally have a much better control over their swing of emotions. So if we are talking about those temper tantrums in the previous age group, here we expect them to decline. But it's important to remember, as we were saying, development occurs across multiple developmental lines, and sometimes things such as developmentally appropriate regressions, they happen. So sometimes a child who is already knowing how to do something, he'll stop doing this. So he'll take a step back. Usually these regressions are in the service of development. So what does it mean? So I'll take a step back to make a jump forward afterwards. So usually before making some sort of jump in terms of their capacities, older children across the age range, and in this age specifically too, they might have a temper tantrum, which is not appropriate per se for this age group, but this would be a normative regression. If it happens once in a while, when it's not regular, so we're not worried about occasional fallbacks. Socially, they will start developing much more sophisticated relationships. So they would really enjoy kind of having one or two focus friendships and play around kind of with the ideas of this is my best friend and you are my best friend, but you are not my best friend. You are somebody else's best friend, and what best friends are doing. At this point, we can expect them to be able to work in pairs over very simple tasks, because they can easily regress into kind of fighting, but they will enjoy working in pairs and in little groups. Don't get them to work in large groups. They still don't know how to do that. It's too hard for them. And what they also like doing, and it's linked to what we're talking about, the sense of humor, they like entertaining. They like making people laugh. But as we were saying, their capacity to do this is a little bit limited at this point. So actually, if you see that a child made a good poop joke, you can actually laugh at it. However, you might also tell them, and you should tell them, this is not the language we use. But not saying it in an aggressive way. You can laugh at it first if it's funny, and then you can set a boundary and say, okay, you made a joke, we don't make these jokes using these words in the classroom. And again, very important when you set these boundaries for all the preschoolers, and this is a personal request from me to you, mind your tone. Because if you're saying something in the way I've just told it now, it's okay. It's like, this is not the way we use language here, young man, is a completely different thing, and it evokes a different response. You get your boundaries anyway, but actually pay attention to how it's crucial. And this brings us to the end of 5 to 6.